Has everyone had a good morning so far? Yeah, brilliant. And food good? Yeah, excellent. That's what I like to hear. We're now moving on to our panel discussion, which is on content marketing, copywriting and creativity. And I'd just like to introduce the chair of the panel, Ian Guiver, who is the Managing Director of Axon Garside, which is a business-to-business inbound marketing agency and a HubSpot partner. Axon Garside's recent awards include the B2B Marketing Campaign of the Year for Imagina Software, and also a big chip for K3 groups, the Factory Viral Video. I've worked with Ian's agency for a couple of years, and I'm always impressed by his insight and his ability to come up with great ideas, often on the spur of the moment. So I thought he would be the perfect guy to chair the panel this afternoon. So I think I'll just shut up now and hand you over to him. Thanks very much.
Can everybody hear me okay? Yep. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Okay. Thanks very much. I'd like to introduce the panel we've got this afternoon. We've got a fantastic panel. Hopefully, I think we're going to have some fairly interesting discussions because we've got some very different perspectives. Immediately to my right is Andy Maslen. To his right is Clare Lynch. To her right, Sonja Jefferson, and to Sonja's right, and Dave Trott. So could everybody just introduce themselves briefly?
I'm Andy Maslen.
Could you tell them a little bit about yourself, Andy?
Former very bad marketing director. I make my own bread. I'm a car nut, and I have a whippet called Merlin. Is that enough? Do you want
enough.
More professional?
Yeah, no, that's enough.
Okay. I'm Clare Lynch. I run Doris and Bertie, and I write marketing bollocks for a living.
I'm Sonja Jefferson, and I run Valuable Content, and I'm a recovering salesperson who's found herself in a marketing role, and we now help people with content marketing.
I'm Dave Trott, and I work in advertising agencies.
Thanks very much. So our subject for this afternoon is content marketing, copywriting and creativity. I'd like to throw an I word in there, which is inbound. And maybe if we could kick off by just talking about what inbound is, what content marketing is, and what the relationship between those two things is. Dave, could you kick off for us?
Sorry?
Could you kick off for us on that?
No, I haven't got a clue.
Okay. Honesty is the best policy. Honesty is the best policy. Andy, could you kick off for us then?
Yeah, well, look, okay, I'd like to start. You probably gathered by now that I think there's nothing new under the sun. Content marketing is this sort of very faddy thing that's going on at the moment. But here is this is a page out of Woman and Home magazine from September 1972. And at the bottom there's an ad for Liam Perrin's Worcester sauce. And I would say this is a pretty good textbook example of content marketing. You see there's a few lines of copy, but then there's some recipes, and then there's a little coupon that invites you to send off for a recipe book. Now I'm willing to bet, although I wasn't in possession of the book itself, that the recipe book suggests you use a lot of Liam Perrin's in your recipes. So it's inbound, that you send off a coupon, you get a recipe book, and this magazine that I have in the office is full of things like that. The only difference between that and most of the content you see around today is that's actually useful and interesting to the reader.
I was in sales for a long time. As I said, I'm a recovering salesperson, so that was my first job that I fell into. And I was selling recruitment services and then consultancy services, things with a really sort of complex message to get across that people really struggled with. And at the time, you walked in as a salesperson and all you got was a brochure and 5 out-of-date case studies, and that was the tools of your trade on the telephone, and that's all you had. And it was a bloody hard job. That was a really difficult thing to get people to understand what you did and come towards your company. And the only thing that worked for me as a salesperson at that particular time, and this was quite a long time ago, so this was before blogs and before social media and all of that stuff, but the thing that worked for me was the guy who ran our company was amazing. He was a brilliant speaker, and he was great at putting out thought leadership-y type stuff. He'd stand up in front of a crowd and he'd excite them about management consultancy amazingly, and lots of ideas that he had got into the specialist press. So we had a very expensive PR PR person at the time, and they could get his articles out, and as a salesperson I could use those to open doors for people. I could send them to somebody and it wasn't a brochure, it wasn't hitting them over the head with a sales message, it was something interesting to them. And then it was the only thing that worked for me as a salesperson, as a door opener. It was the best thing ever. And then blogs came along, and suddenly you realised, wow, so, we could do that ourselves. I'm not doing down PR because that's important, but suddenly we had some new tools around that we could use to get these ideas out there. If you've got something interesting to say, you have the tools now to be able to do that. And content marketing has been around forever. You're so right. Lego magazines and going back a long time, but we've just got some more tools now that we can use. And I think it's nothing more than that, really. We can take control of it ourselves in a different way. So, yeah, I think it's valid. It's not old. You have tools, why not use them?
So, just picking up on that, you talked about blogging. Andy won't mind me referring to the fact he wrote a blog very recently, last few days. I'm paraphrasing, 7 reasons why copywriters shouldn't blog. Claire, would you like to comment on Andy's blog before you...
The main reason I recall from that article is that, particularly if you have large corporate clients like I do, they don't have time to be piddling around on the internet reading ranty articles about where to stick apostrophes. And that's true. I have a blog, and admittedly most of my readers are the likes of the people in this audience. I think if it's a waste of time talking to other copywriters, then what are we all doing here? I also think if you target it properly, people at large companies do have time to piddle around on the internet reading your stuff. The past couple of weeks I've been writing about the challenges that I know my clients face, which is to actually get copy out of the door in a large organisation when you have the guy from HR trying to insert words like leveraging synergies into your copy, and how you manage those stakeholder relationships. And I lost a couple of readers. Some woman in Utah who specialises in direct mail copywriting didn't want to read these posts. But 3 large investment banks, multiple people were reading those posts, and they're exactly the kind of people that I want to hit. If you understand your reader's problem, they will read it.
Dave, could you maybe come back on that? Talk a little bit perhaps about whether or not businesses can afford to be controversial. A lot of businesses that I speak to are very frightened of being controversial.
Well, controversy means some people will talk about it. It means everybody will talk about it. Some people will like it and some people won't, right? So Bill Bernbach said, if you stand for something, you'll find some people are for you and some people are against you. If you stand for nothing, you'll find nobody for you and nobody against you. So it's an illusion that you're going to be in a position where everybody is for you. What you tend to do is dilute it and dilute it and dilute it until you stand for nothing and nobody even notices you, which is where 90% of people are. So instead of welcome, the problem isn't do they like you, the problem is does anybody even fucking notice you? And if you're in most people are in a frightened area. Rory Sutherland said a great thing. He said, creative people have a fear of the obvious, and they must sell their work to people who have a love of the obvious. And clients love the obvious, and nobody's ever explained to them why that's wrong. There's security in all holding hands and all being invisible together. And for God's sake, don't stand out in case 30 people will like you and 1 person will hate you. And what you kind of get, the human condition in that, is like Stephen Fry, who's followed by 500,000 people on Twitter, and 1 person slags him off and he immediately comes off Twitter and runs away scared. You keep your money in your trousers. If you're not prepared to be controversial, don't bother spending any money. That's how you don't upset anybody. If you don't actually want to do what advertising is, which is get people talking about you, which is a controversy, then don't do it. Save the money.
Anybody from the audience like to pick up on anything they've heard so far? Okay. The mic coming to you? Thank you.
I'd just like to say, I organised a conference about death called The Joy of Death. And I got an awful lot of complaints. People emailed me saying there is no joy in bereavement. But lots of people within the community said, we're not going to come to this, it's inappropriate. But we didn't come when we changed the name. So it's actually good. You know, we should have kept The Joy of Death. So just a point.
John Hegarty was just saying recently he did Vorsprung durch Technik. He wanted to do for Audi, and they researched it, and half the people hated it and half the people loved it, and Hegarty and the client both said that's great, the half the people that love it are the half that we want. And so it's just usually, well, you're going to try and carry on and do something until you get something nobody hates, then you end up with one of those invisible, meaningless lines that nobody notices. You know?
Sonja, how does that relate to your work environment?
Strong stories and, you know, being controversial relates totally to that, you know, in terms of the content people put out. But, you know, there's a lot in the content marketing world, and it'd be quite interesting to discuss this on the inbound side and with you too, Andy, but let's say that, you know, advertising is dead in the days of content marketing. You know, I don't subscribe to that. But it's a good debate to have. I don't know if anybody on the floor has got that as well. Andy, you've probably got a view on that one, but, you know, it doesn't die. These new tools that we've got don't mean that other things disappear. It sits alongside it, but there seems to be a voice in the content marketing community that said this is it, this is the only thing you can ever do. Give up everything else and just do that.
It always worries me whenever you get the word community appended to anything, and the content marketing community is about to collectively disappear up its own arsehole, I think 6 months from now this will be a dead subject. As Dave's thing earlier, you know, it's just the latest in a cycle of ways to get, you know, communications going. You know, the fact it was, you know, Woman and Home was doing it in 72. I mean, Claude Hopkins, Christ sake, was doing it in the 1920s. The fact that a new generation of self-made gurus have latched onto this as a way to make some money out of the gullible is a big part of the problem. The reason I said that copywriters shouldn't blog is, well, twofold. One is because a lot of people are only doing that and thinking this is sales and marketing. If you want to be a successful copywriter, I mean, people like Dave Trott got on a plane and went to New York to break into advertising. If you really want something badly enough, you have to go and meet people face to face who will give you some of their money. Sitting around at your kitchen table, you know, writing yet another post that, yes, your website should have a headline on every page is just a completely pointless activity. Yes, if you've got something fresh to say, but if it's that fresh and original, why are you giving it away? Why don't you publish it and get some money for it? And more to the point, why don't you make a few phone calls to people you want to work for and say, I can help you sell more of your widgets?
I think the problem is that most writers are extreme introverts. And it's just so much easier to sit there ranting on the internet than to actually pick up a phone to a client, even one you know, and say, look, how are things? Do you fancy a coffee? And I know I know which one I'd prefer to do myself.
Well, I mean, speaking of, you know, there's a room full of our competitors here. Carry on blogging.
I think you have to also look at it on the flip sides from, you know, a buyer's point of view, and just to take it out of copywriting into, I wanted to try and find a personal trainer not so long ago. I'm embarrassed to admit, and you know, I'd gone down to the gym, and so I'd got 2 business cards, and one website was just packed full of this woman's attributes in terms of how many half marathons she's run and the amount of, you know, increase in speed she'd incurred for other people that she trained with, and, you know, it was all about her. It was all about, you know, me, how bloody great I am, how much I can, you know, impress you with that. And the other website was just a blog-based site, and the guy had written everything from, you know, weight loss tips to different exercises you could do on his site, and I didn't know either of them. All I had were these cards, and I went into the gym and picked them up, and I trusted him. And I think it is a lot about trust. Obviously you go to people's websites, and he may have had a cleverly written headline that would have pulled me in, but I didn't know him, and I wanted to trust. And these days you can build trust if you've got the right type of information on the web. You can, and that was a simple choice for me, was just to go with the one who looked like he was going to be more helpful to me, because the information was right there. He could have written anything he liked on that one from a clever way, but I believed him, and I picked up the phone to him, and he's now the trainer, and it's a difference between those two things. The tools are there. So,
Claire, hasn't the web changed the way we behave? Don't we go now out to find products or services rather than have products and services come to us? Isn't that the change?
I don't know.
I think it is. Not all the time, but we have much more propensity now to do the research ourselves. And something came into our Twitter feed not so long ago, and it was by Kanye West, the rapper. If anybody knows that, and he said, I think he was ranting, and his tweet was, if I remember it right, don't ever sell me on anything. Just give me all the information, and I'll make up my own mind. He was cross, somebody trying to ram it down his throat again, and he can go out. You can go out there. The information's there for you. It's for us as businesses, and to put that information out so that people can get the information they need to be able to buy their fitness services or whatever it is. It's not saying that it's dead in the water. Actual proactive contact. I don't believe that inbound is the only way, but give people the tools, that the information to do their own research. They're expecting that now from you. It's changed, and we work in the B2B world, possibly similar as you. But even in the most die-hard of industries, we've got one client, Sharon's my partner here as well, which is an information security consultancy, and they're all in their late 50s, and the web is not their natural playground at all. And through putting useful information written for 12-year-olds on their site, not packing it full of jargon, they get a whole heap of leads off the web, even from the public sector, because people are looking for useful information out there. They put searches into Google for things that they want to know, and if you get found and you show yourself to be useful and you build trust, then people will call you.
I mean, I have to say, although I do blog, and I won't stop blogging, partly because I enjoy it, and I've had one or two people come to me because of my blog and my twittering. I have to say I'm not wholly convinced that if you were to do a cost and profit analysis on it, whether it would actually work out worth it.
Well, that's my point, really. Excuse me if I jump in. The thing earlier about what works better. Everything works.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter, and I don't know why, but I still am, and I'm sort of addicted to it. Maybe that's why. But I say it doesn't work. And people say, oh no, because I've had clients off Twitter, and this is the same person that said, my big problem is I need higher paying clients. And so, well, how much do you make from these clients? Well, I got £100 job the other day. I mean, everything works, but when I look at my agency and where all of our accounts have come from, there's always been a face-to-face meeting at the original genesis of the relationship. It's always been an outbound thing. And so yeah, of course content works, but I mean, if you take cars as an example, I mean, yeah, cars work as a concept, but I mean, between a Lada and a Bentley, there's a lot of difference in which one is more effective. So in terms of the return on investment, which is my sort of big point really, everything works, but if you think of the opportunity cost of blogging, particularly if, like the guy I was talking to yesterday, you don't like doing it, it's monstrous. It's a monstrous opportunity cost. You're going to spend 4 hours writing a blog post. That's 4 hours. You speak like a reformed saleswoman because you've found your comfort zone with sort of inbound and blogging, and it's this very passive thing. You just sit there and you put your content out, and you're conning yourself that you're selling. Whereas out there in the real world, millions of people are shaking hands with each other, sitting down to dinner, and doing the deal.
I don't think you're conning yourself that you're selling, but you can use the both in conjunction, and the power comes from using the two together. So, if you meet a client and then you can write something for them that's genuinely helpful after that meeting, and you can send that out to that person, you know, in blog format or whatever it is. That just ups again your credibility. It's just a way of being more valuable, you know, by using the tools that you've got out there. And then, you know, that's written for a particular client, so you could have written them a letter or something like that as well, but why not put it online and let other people, and they will have a similar challenge to your client quite often, you know, find that too. And then again, you've got an increased opportunity for being found and for winning more business because of putting your stuff out there. The tools are there, so use them.
Can I just ask the audience, is anybody using content as part of an online strategy where they can be pretty sure that it is working?
This is more of an observation, which is coming back to Dave's earlier point, that you have to be taking somebody else's lunch, and all that's happened is the platform has changed, and this is your shop front. And that's why shops are closing in the high street, because people are now shopping online, and your content is just your shop front and your point about being able to demonstrate your expertise. But you still got to get people into your shop.
Yeah, on this blogging, I think 4 hours on a blog, that as writers you can knock out a blog in half an hour, but I think that we need to use our blogs as strategic selling tools. So a classic example is I had a guy contacted me, interested in me speaking at his conference. I said, right, sign up to my blog. What did I do? The next 2 blogs were on about public speaking, how to do great speaking. Lo and behold, I got signed up for a very nice public speaking exercise. So I think it's bringing a bit of marketing and sales savvy into our blogging, and then that way we get a cracking return on it. Now, no, not every single blog you could do that. You'd be a bit disingenuous if you did, but I certainly use mine in that cunning and, you know, baffling way that I want to lure people into my web for specific things. So I think we've got to be careful not to diss blogging too much as a selling tool.
So connected to that, one way or another, a lot of clients are asking for content that goes online. And a lot of the clients that I talk to are convinced that quantity is the name of the game and quality can go by the way. How do we persuade clients that quality is what they should be focusing on? Claire.
How do you... My life is a constant battle with clients to get them to... I don't know about focus on quality, but certainly just to speak in plain English, clear English. How do you manage clients, is what you're asking?
Well, I talk to a lot of people. They say, okay, we understand that the web's a great thing. We understand that people find us on the web. So if we get lots of content, that'll be great. Everyone will find us. I'll go and find someone who's just left school and sit in the corner of my office and write some stuff. It'll be fine. Yeah. How does a copywriter make the case for quality?
I mean, I have to say, I'm generally not producing stuff, churning out stuff on the web for most of my clients. Most of my clients would not look to a sort of 18-year-old kid to churn out their stuff. My greater challenge is getting them to not have some guy in the business screw it up. So I think I'm operating in a different sphere from you.
How do the clients screw it up?
They insert meaningless gobbledygook into writing. They want to make everything strategic and abstract, and and what usually happens is you'll have some little person in the marketing department who sees the end reader as the guy in the business, the stakeholder, and that's the person you need to please rather than the reader. And that's always been my challenge, is getting them to think not in terms of the organisation and looking upwards, but looking towards the reader. That's the big challenge I face.
Anybody else like to come in on that?
I think it's, what is quality, really, isn't it? That's a difficult thing to impart, but I think what you're referring to is there's a sort of movement to think that, you know, from an SEO point of view, you can get somebody to churn out thousands of articles and more is better, and that's what's going to work. But, you know, even if you get people to your site and they land on an article and it doesn't have relevance and it doesn't interest them or excite them or turn their minds around in some way, then you've lost them anyway. So, you know, it's not a numbers game. It's down to being more relevant and more user-focused and more exciting than the next person, really, and more, answering their questions.
So, how do we measure the worth of copywriting?
Well, I will come in on that. I mean, and to keep it in terms of the writing of content, because it gets hard. You know, the further you are away from the bottom line, the harder it is. Well, for example, the harder it is to charge for a piece of copy. I found that when you're writing a sales letter, you could charge, you know, an order of magnitude more than for an equivalently sized piece of bloggery or white papery. You know, people want stuff on their site and they don't know how they're going to measure it. They might get some inbound traffic, they might collect a few email addresses. But, you know, we were talking about this over dinner last night. There are two sort of going rates for a blog post at the moment. There's 400 to 500, which is what most of us charge. And I feel I'm being screwed, incidentally, if I have to charge that little. And then there's the going rate that most people want to pay, which is about a tenner. And I think if anyone asks me for that, I tell them to off. And I don't think there's any point trying to persuade clients that quality matters. It's like banging your head against a brick wall. I run a business. What I want to work with is people who already are persuaded that they need quality. You know, if you work in a Bentley showroom, you don't want people who want a Ford Focus, and you don't have to persuade them of the value of Bentley. You just want Bentley customers. If you're happy to work for £3 an hour, then that's fine. There are all sorts of organisations who will hire you, and we will know who they are. So, you know, to agree with you, Sonja, I think all of my criticisms about blogging are really when it's done badly, when there is no link to profitability or measurement or clients or return on investment. And actually the problem with the tool of the internet is that now everyone's a publisher. Now, if you're a big sort of democratist, you think that's a brilliant idea. If you're an elitist like me, you think it's a terrible idea. Because now anyone can put anything on the web, and it appears superficially to be of equal value to something that you've slaved over. And because of this plethora of rubbish, clients have now picked up on this idea, 400-word blog post on hairdressing or vinyl wrapping or glass manufacture is all the same. And the going rate, thanks to Copify, if I say that name out loud, people like that, is about £6 or £7. There's no point dealing with those companies.
You're not going to turn them around.
That's not the market. Go and work. Get Tesco to hire you as a client, or the Prudential. They'll pay you thousands of pounds for something sensible.
Anybody else in the audience like to come in on that? Anybody have any experience of the lady in the front, second row?
Hi, I'm interested in the difference between what I understand to be cornerstone content, which I think is what you're talking about. So when somebody comes to a site like a personal trainer or a plumber and they've got answers to their questions, and there's the difference between blogging where you're actually churning something out on a weekly or monthly basis, because with blogging you need to make sure that you've got an audience, and you're going to be working your Twitter feed, you're going to be working your Facebook feed, and there are actually going to be people that are going to be reading you. So there's an awful lot of work there, which is where a lot of time goes in, and I can't churn out a blog post in half an hour. And I want to know that if I'm going to write something, it's going to reflect well on my company and the work that I do. So is there a difference in cornerstone content where you could literally have, rather than just a basic website and a brochure site, a site that's got, for a copywriter, the rough guide to writing headlines, how to write a basic sales letter. So you're showing clients that you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, and that you can write a leaflet and you can write an advert. And the blogging where you're taking in and you're doing the more creative thinking that Dave's been talking about, where you're going to do sort of an intersection of ideas, like Andy's written one about baking. It was on baking and something, and it was just because your interest is piqued by how the hell is he going to link baking to this? There's a Copyblogger post on the Depeche Mode Guide to Content Marketing, things like that, where I love Depeche Mode, so I'm going to read it anyway, and I'm also quite interested in content marketing, which is why I'm here today. So is there a difference between the churning out and actually what we're talking about? We're actually talking about cornerstone content, where you're making a website that shows to your prospects that you know what you're talking about.
I think that's exactly the right approach. And the websites that we see, and we give out these things called the Valuable Content Awards each month, and it was a way of just showing our clients, who are mainly sort of B2B, professional servicey types, what's possible. So we go around the world and we look for companies doing this really well and getting results, and then we interview them to see how they're doing it best. And the ones that are really working have a bit of both. So, and we nick this from the world of economics, but we call it stock and flow content. So flow is the ephemeral stuff. It's the stuff you put out every day. It's the tweets, which is still content. It's linking back a lot of the time. It's the tweets and it's the blog articles that have a shorter shelf life, if you like. And you balance that with your stock content, which is, as you used to call, the really hard-working stuff. And what we try to do for our clients is to get them to create some of that too, as a real, as you said, cornerstone for their website. And the ultimate, for some of the clients that we've managed to get is to create a business book, in our world, that speaks as, they really know their stuff, so it's having a bit of a balance of the two things. And, as a sales tool, again, I am a recovering salesperson, but we sell as a business and this works for us. We've written a book and that is the most fantastic calling card or, a credibility piece, really, as much as anything else. When you walk into a client meeting, being able to hand that over to them, and it goes around an organisation and it flies under their increasingly defensive anti-marketing radar, because it's useful to them. It's not me selling my services in a brochure type way. It's useful and I can leave it behind. And on the web it works the same way. So give something for people to take away that has real validity. Look after your newsletter subscribers, by giving away the really, really useful stuff. Save something special for them. But then there's the continuous flow of more ephemeral stuff, like a blog, which you do every day and can still be very useful. So I think a balance of both.
Can I just to come in on that, because I think back to that thing about copywriters and blogging, the question is, you said give it away. What I see a lot of, what I think is a problem for, and it seems to be like a room full of copywriters, is people are just giving it away. And yes, okay, fine, search if you really think that's worth doing, but you could be doing so much more with it. So, for example, on Sunfish, my agency side of things, not the training business, although it works for that too, we have an email list of about 3,500-4,000 people who I know are potential customers for either training or writing. The only way you get our good stuff, what do you call it, stock content, the ebooks and the how-to guides and the packs of this, that and the other, is you give us your first name and your email address. And you then consign yourself, as some of you may have discovered, to a lifetime of annoying emails from me, trying to get you to come on a training course or hire me to write copy for you. In other words, it's a transaction. There's no money involved, but here is something useful. If you want it, you have to pay. You don't have to pay with money, but you have to pay with your privacy, little slice of your privacy. Then I think it's worth doing, because you can start out like an old school direct mailer and you build a mailing list. And so you've got a mailing list, you've got some control, and you can start selling. What's interesting though, and this is why I think this industry is going to eat its own young, is that whenever I send out a mailing that is a out-and-out sales pitch, what happens is about 15 people unsubscribe, and about every 3 times somebody writes to me in the most extreme language saying, how dare you send me this piece of sales material? I didn't sign up for this, I wanted free advice. I'm like, fuck you, this is free. You're quite happy for me to email you for 36 months with 40,000 words of free advice to help you make money. The one time I say, would you like me to teach you how to do it for money? This is like, it's extraordinary. Thank you, whoever clapped.
Is there anybody who disagrees with that?
But doesn't it just show you how, that's really, I totally agree with you, but it does show you what our buyers, what we're trying to sell into today. It has changed, doesn't it, in terms of...
We've changed it. We are the architects of our own destruction, because this entire industry and every other bloody industry has latched onto this thing about content. What's really great is these 18th century methods of selling, like meeting people, putting adverts in the press, going and seeing people at trade fairs in Bremen or wherever, and actually doing business. When the entire world is leaving behind books at their clients' offices, believe me, they won't be valued anymore. Warren Buffett, it's a Warren Buffett moment. When everyone's zigging, he zags. This, to me, feels like a classic zag moment. Within a year or two, you won't be able to move for ebooks and white papers and all the rest of this crap that's being pumped out. Some of it's very good, and some of it is utterly meretricious. And to the casual observer, as I say, it all looks the same. If you hire a decent graphic designer, your piece of crap looks better than my piece of really good stuff. And I'm not prepared to believe that the average client is going to spend that much time analysing it to figure out which is which. They just go, oh, an ebook.
But utility always wins through. I think it does, and it's not just, it does, and it just means being, using all the skills as copywriters that we do really well, listening to clients better, responding to their real questions, and proving, the type of businesses we do work with, they're sort of the unsung heroes of their industry. They will get referred time and time again because they do really high quality work, but they're bloody useless at getting found in the first place, and getting more people in. And it's just by putting who they are anyway, their knowledge, in a different format, they can make a huge difference to the people. It's, they're good enough anyway, and our job as copywriters is to translate that knowledge in my industry, which is B2B type stuff, into something that clients can understand. And if you do that, they build trust, and it works for them as a sales tool.
Well, it works for your client. Like I said, everything works. We have clients who do it too. But over lunch, Dave and I were talking about the Cadbury's Gorilla and all of that, and the main reason that was there was to get better distribution. In other words, you can have the best content in the world, but or advertising. If you go to your local sweetie shop and there's no Cadbury's CDN there, you ain't going to buy it. So it doesn't matter how good it was. So I guess what I'm driving at is, where's the return on investment? Every big company on the planet, with the possible exception of Google and Facebook, managed to get there without content. Procter & Gamble, Oracle, British Airways, all these big companies that are still around and have been the number one in their industry since the 30s, managed to do it without the web or anything else. So it's not that I'm non-starry-eyed about content or anything else. I've built a successful business out of content marketing, the academy, so it can work. I just see as a trend this sort of exponential growth in content, and I actually disagree. I actually don't think utility will win out, because eventually people will have the same problem they had before, which is there's simply too much. And I'm old enough to remember there was a great phrase or word that was used in the 90s, disintermediation. Anyone hear that? The web was going to usher in this great era of disintermediation, which means, you won't need travel agents, you won't need anyone to help you make a decision. It's all out there. You just go onto the web and you research it. And then, weirdly, it turns out human beings haven't changed, and it's really tedious to research out of 5,000 villas in Croatia which is the right one for you. So what do? You go to travel counsellors, or you go to Go Compare. And so, in fact, life carries on. You have intermediaries, you have insurance brokers. Yes, they move their shop front, as this chap was saying, onto the web. But human nature hasn't changed. The problems we face haven't changed in the last, 20 years since Berners-Lee invented the web. So there's always a big hoo-ha when something new comes along, and yes, this is the end of everything, what was it? I'm old. When the fax came in, that was supposed to be the end of everything, and then, TV was supposed to destroy cinema, and you find that more people are going to the cinema than ever before, because people want that communal experience. And
Dave, do you think that clients are in risk of forgetting how people tick?
Well, a lot of this, I purposely don't know what it means, and I purposely don't know, because I think there's like an intelligent naivety that if I stay like the punter, I'm more likely to talk to the punter. Consequently, I don't know what content means. I don't know what storytelling means. I don't know what those things are, and I don't know if I do them. I don't know if I've ever needed them. Not that I don't know. I think other people should have them. Fine if you want them. I don't know them any more than I need to know the words of every part on the car. But I do think, as Birnbach says, the normal, timeless human truths. The Twitter for me, it's just I go on there and to get people to read what I say, I'll just like standard advertising. To get people to read you, you'll tell jokes or you'll say interesting facts. Then when you got a bit of an audience, I slide in a plug for the book. Every fourth or fifth thing. And this bloke wrote to me and said, Dave, why do you keep mentioning your book? Don't you know you are polluting your stream? And I wrote back to this bloke, I said, you're not in advertising, are you? This is like, what do? You make an exchange. I'll do something really funny, really entertaining that you like, a song that you like, a joke that you like, and then I'll tell you why you should buy my product. We know that. That's how it works. If I'm really, really boring, I won't get any of your attention. There's no exchange. When did that change? That hasn't changed since man's been around. This is just new stuff to do it with. The latest fashion is Twitter or blogs or it's another media. And in advertising, what's terrible is everybody is besotted with novelty because then you don't have to think. If I can get it first, I don't have to think. What you forget is you've got about a 1 week gap before everybody's got it. And once everybody's got it, then you've got to outthink them again. And so there was someone won an award for doing an eye pint on a phone that you drink, and do you know the beer goes down as you drink the thing? That won an award. Nobody remembers who it was for, and now nobody gives a damn because it's 3 years ago and it seems so quaint and old-fashioned. And it's like, just stop studying that stuff, start studying people, and then this is like a chisel or a hammer. This is a way to get the people to do the job you want to do. Rather than, what can I build with this hammer is the wrong start point. How do I build a wardrobe is the right start point. Yeah?
We've got 1 minute 40 seconds left, according to my clock. Andy, if you had to give one piece of advice to the people in the room to leave, what would it be?
Write a blog. Or don't.
Discuss. Claire?
I think I'm increasingly coming round to Andy's viewpoint, so I would say don't bother writing a blog. Pick up the phone and have a coffee with that client.
Sonja?
I would say use all the tools you have available to you to add value to your particular clients, new and old.
Thank you.
I'd say reinvent the wheel every time. Everybody tells you don't reinvent the wheel. That's formula. And the one thing that absolutely isn't creative is formula. So every time you sit down and it's a new thing, how do you outthink someone else? And that's reinventing the wheel. And otherwise, formula, we can get machinery to do it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're at the end of our time.